Japan has condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine as an historical atrocity. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says Tokyo will revoke Moscow's trade status as most favoured nation. The government will also expand and strengthen sanctions on Russia. Mr. Kishida has also urged China to behave in a responsible manner in responding to the Ukraine crisis. He says Japan will work closely with G7 nations and take its call on Russian sanctions. At the same time, Tokyo aims to provide more humanitarian aid, such as food and medicine, to Ukraine. Now, the Prime Minister's comments came in a major speech in which he dealt not only with Tokyo's response to the Ukraine invasion, but also with the COVID situation at home. Minister Kishida joins us live. Minister, first to Ukraine, what kind of further sanctions against Russia can we expect?
Well, Mr. Fumio Kishida expressed anger towards Russia's actions and said that he will revoke Russia of the most favored nation trade status. That means that he will raise import tariffs on Russia's maritime goods, for instance, sea urchins and crabs. He will stop imports of certain goods from Russia. He says that the details will be determined at a later time. And Japan will stop exports of luxury goods to Russia. And he said that he will restrict transfer of crypto funds. On other financial sanctions, he said, includes the freeze of assets of those close to Mr. Vladimir Putin. Now, it's on top of earlier decision to freeze assets of other individuals. And it's also on top of export bans of high-tech materials that Japan produces, such as semiconductors. So far, ties with Russia has deteriorated. Russia has placed Japan on the list of unfriendly nations, and Japan has complained to Russia. Japan has a presence in Russia in terms of business. There were 347 companies as of February. Many are starting to stop their operations in Russia. And Japan does import LNG, for instance, 8% of its total LNG and 4% of crude oil from Russia. So if Russia retaliates, Japan has to find some other way to procure these. Mr. Kishida called to the public to conserve energy. Now, on Ukraine, Mr. Kishida said that he will provide $100 million of humanitarian aid. Earlier, the Self-Defense Force transported bullet-proof vests, helmets, backup power, and food via Poland. Ukraine later requested binoculars, lighting, and medical equipment from Japan. So Japan will be transporting those too, and it is using U.S. military aircrafts and also commercial aircrafts. Now, Japan has, as of March 13th, accepted 47 Ukrainian refugees, and Mr. Kishida is willing to accept more. And he says that local governments, some corporations are willing to accept them. And he has set up a special team under the Chief Cabinet Secretary to coordinate.
It wasn't just the Ukraine crisis. Prime Minister Kishida also looked at Japan's COVID-19 situation. What are the plans going forward as the Omicron outbreak eases?
Yes, well, currently 18 Japanese prefectures are under the so-called quasi-state of emergency, and it's until Monday. Now, Mr. Kishida decided to lift all out of the status, and it's for the first time since January. It means business hours for bars and restaurants will be back to normal. Those regarded as close contacts of COVID-19 patients will not have to be quarantined if they don't test positive for COVID. Now, but he does still want the public to continue to wear masks, frequently wash their hands, and practice physical distancing. He says that this will be a transition period to normalizing life in Japan. So it will still take some time for Japan to go back to what it was in 2019.
Thanks for that. Minister Kishida reporting to us there from Tokyo.